And welcome again, everybody, to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jason Bryant. Today, we're going to be talking to this guy. We're going to bring him in, Calumet College of St. Joseph head coach Tom Molony. He has been at the helm of the Crimson Wave for not even a year. We're going to be talking NAIA Wrestling Championships. We're going to be talking about his program. But before we get into any of that, Tom has been a patron of this network for a while now. And we've also got some new patrons that have come on board with the network. And one of those perks you get the shout out. So Barry Jenkin, you're getting the shout out. Cliff Fretwell from Compound, he has been a gear supporter of this program and the network since its inception in 2013, 2014. Cliff said, you know what? The business side is one thing, but I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make sure I'm going to get my preview guide in his thick Georgia accent in the finals. And one of those perks, Tom, you're going to get this too. My Division I Championship Preview Guide. Pre-sales open now. WrestlingPreviewGuide.com/JB. That'll save you $5. If you're a patron, you get that already as part of your patronage at a certain level. You can find out there, MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. And Tom, you've been a wrestling fan. You've been a coach for a long time. And just to throw this, talking about the patronage here, why do you support the network the way you do?
Well, I think you do excellent work. I think it's, one of the things I love to follow what you do. I'm really invested in promoting the sport. Anything we can do to just continue to keep it growing, I'm going to do that. And, I know that you're always putting out quality work, so I never question that. And that's easy to support when you're seeing that, when you see people who are putting the sport kind of ahead of themselves. I'm on board with that. So that's why I do it.
So again, information there, MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. Couple different ways to do it. You can do it with a one-time shot on Patreon. You can actually join the network here. If you're watching on Rockfin, this is a free stream. If you've just got a user account, if you want to support Matt Talk Online, you can register through there. So Patreon, Rockfin, we've got Buy Me a Coffee, you've got Venmo, you got PayPal. Like I said, whatever way you want to. Some guy, Ralph Wetzel mails me a check every year. Like Kirk Ford mails me a check from Pittsburgh without an H, Kansas. Speaking of Kansas, that's where I'm going to be this coming week. I just got my flight to check in. I have my boarding pass on Delta to fly to Wichita tomorrow. Got to get there early for some COVID testing, but the NAIA National Championships are coming up. We're going to get into that and do an overview weight by weight. We're going to bring up some brackets. We're going to have some fun because it's one of my favorite tournaments. I've been announcing it for the last couple years. But Tom, you are at Calumet College of St. Joseph. I believe it's Whiting, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, unless they say Whitting or something along those lines, like Reading, Pennsylvania. People will say, wait, it looks like Reading. It's like the Reading Railroad, not Reading. Anyway, Monopoly. So we get to that. That is an NAIA school, fairly new program in terms of the last decade. A few All-Americans, a handful, but a program that's kind of had a revolving door of coaches, including some guys more than once. So before we get into your background of coaching and wrestling in Illinois, what made you interested in this position at Calumet College of St. Joseph?
Sure. Well, I knew one of the guys since he was actually in junior high. He was part of the first team back in 2009, 2010, Artie Gruba. And so I'd been following Artie's kind of ascension through from junior high on, and I decided, I want to kind of assist wherever I could in terms of support for the program. So Artie's a great guy. He and I would regularly talk about it when I was coaching at Triton College, and he was at Harper College. So I was just poking around and throwing some ideas out there every once in a while to the coaches who came through. And it just kind of on a lark, I was sitting around early last summer and I decided to see what was going on there. I knew they had an All-American last year, Nick Fowler at heavyweight. And to my surprise, the position was open. And I thought, well, it's relatively close. It's just over the border, Illinois-Indiana border, about a mile and a half into Indiana, and that's within an hour of my house. So I decided, why not? I'll go for it. It's kind of been a dream of mine to, run a program. I've been involved in college wrestling for the last 7 years, coaching, and I thought I can make this step. I know I can do this, and with a lot of my other background, kind of pulling it all together as a head coach, and I went for it, and joke's on them. They hired me. So
when you go to a position like this, what is the dynamic? A full-time job, part-time job?
Right.
You're in that area that basically Northwest Indiana, outside of Chicago. You're from the suburbs of Chicago. So what goes into that position, and what's your day-to-day life like as a college wrestling coach, and what else goes along with it?
Yeah, so I'm the first full-time head coach in program history. Up to this point, everybody who's been in line has been part-time, which has been, a monumental task. And I think anybody who has tried to do that at the college level will tell you that it is really, really, really difficult to maintain success when that's not your primary focus. So the college came through and they kind of looked at the landscape of Northwest Indiana wrestling, or what they call the region, and its proximity to the third largest city in the country, Chicago. Roughly where I'm from, about a mile west in Oak Park. And they said, we're not doing service to the program. We really want to make a large step forward. So they've started investing more. They made the head coaching position a full-time position. And they're investing in other ways too, looking at new space for this. In terms of day-to-day, I'm chasing down a lot of coaches. I'm new to Indiana wrestling. I grew up in Illinois. 42 of my 46 years of my life have been spent in Illinois. Other than that, when I was in the military, I was just kind of bouncing around the country and the world. So, but never Indiana. And so when I got here, it was, phone calls, emails, text messages, repeat, one after the next. And that's been the day-to-day. But I'm not focusing solely on Indiana and Illinois. I'm literally going coast to coast. Like yesterday, I was having a conversation with a coach in Long Island, New York. Right after that, I was texting with a coach from Oahu, Hawaii. Going back and forth and talking to coaches literally from Florida to Washington, from Minnesota to Texas, kids too. Ideally, we want a lot of homegrown kids because we're the only program in Northwest Indiana. And so, that's a source of pride for. I also recognize that if we want a championship team, which is what we want to build, that's not going to come with just local kids alone. So it's a lot of chasing people down. It's a lot of, just making connections. I think that's the biggest thing. I think, if a coach is really going to promote your program to their kids, they want to feel, a sense of trust. It's a relationship is essentially what it is. It's not unlike a personal relationship or a business relationship. They want to feel like, okay, I see where this is going, and they're going to do right by my kids. Everybody's going to grow. And so that's really it. And talking to people and saying like, hey, number one always is education. I'm not interested in pulling kids in to just use them for their wrestling talent. I always tell every student athlete that I come in contact with is use wrestling as the vehicle to earn your degree. Okay. Wrestling's never first. It's always your education because that's the number one reason you're there. If you're not, pulling your weight in the classroom, then there's no wrestling. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of just conversation, talking and saying, hey, we're doing it the right way. I'm not interested in taking a kid and just saying like, oh, you're a great wrestler. We can use you for a year. This is a 4 to 5 year investment in each of these kids that I'm recruiting right now. So that's what I do. Just having those conversations. We're an unknown, as you kind of alluded to. So it's reestablishing a lot of connections locally, certainly nationally, because they weren't doing a lot of national recruiting before that. And so, when I was at Triton, and then when I moved over to Division III Elmhurst College, I had more of a national scope in terms of what I was looking at and trying to really recruit kids from, coast to coast, because that's how you win. You don't win with just kids in the neighborhood. You've really got to pull from all over the place.
Couple things that you pointed out that I found interesting. One, you've got to be one of the youngest looking 46-year-olds on the planet. So I don't know what your secret is. At 41, I'm sitting there looking, okay, I'm just on the treadmill. Like I think I've worked out like 30 times in the last, 35 times the last 30 days. I'm like trying to get down there. I'm just like, dude, I was like, I knew we were a little older than me, but I'm like, yikes, dude. Yeah. So shout out to
moisturizer, Jason.
Moisturizer. Yeah, well, it's really ashy right now here in Minnesota with as many lakes as we have, very dry in the wintertime.
Right.
Secondly, This is something that I think the proof is in the pudding. Let's use Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island as an example.
Yeah.
Part-time coaches, part-time
Yeah.
results. And even no
Sure.
matter how hard a guy like Lonnie Morris worked as a part-time coach,
Yeah.
you saw the jump at Johnson and Wales in Division III when he was elevated to full-time. So again, I've kind of said it, and not to disparage the part-time coaches that are doing as much as they can. Part-time coaches get part-time results. So so where does that come from? I mean, what was the discussion like with your administration? It's like, okay, why are you going full-time? I mean, now, especially with an enrollment-driven school, you have part-time, you have low numbers, your retention is problem. If you were Division I, you'd have APR problems, but that's not the case in the NAIA. So just from an administrative standpoint, where do you see the investment in saying, yeah, you're the first full-time coach, this is why we want to do it?
I think because this is just a guess, because we haven't had that like full out discussion. When I initially applied, it was listed as a part-time position. And so I pitched it to the AD at the time, Rick Torres. I said, listen, I'm really not interested in driving 35 miles one way for a part-time position. I said, and truth be told, look at the results you've been receiving with part-time coaching. And it's not to disparage the coaches who were here before. They had, again, it was an unbelievably difficult task to balance all the things that they were doing. And truth be told, part-time coaches, the expectations are it's full-time work. And it's not stated that way ever, but if you want to have a great
wrestling
program,
coach is if we broke it down per hour, a wrestling coach makes like 20 cents an hour if you consider everything that goes into it. So to that point, it's wrestling coaches never retire and they don't get paid for overtime.
Right. Yeah. And not to get too deep into it, but my former wife said the same thing. She's like, do you realize you're getting like 50 cents an hour? And I said, you don't understand. And I don't know. I mean, here I am all this time later, so I don't know. She was onto something, but I think that's really the thing is, you've got these guys who pour their hearts and souls into this stuff, and it's just tough because they're trying to have a full-time job. A lot of those guys had families. A lot of those guys are trying to they all came in with the best of intentions, and they wanted to have, they wanted to be the Penn State of the NAIA. They wanted to unseat some Iowa schools. I won't mention any names, but
we'll mention them soon enough.
Yeah, they're worthy of mention, no question. But truth be told, is that the administration just looked at it and said, okay, here's what we've received over the last 10 years. With part-time coaches, we've received a few All-Americans here and there, a couple national qualifiers. Do we want to keep this? We're in a wrestling hotbed. I mean, where Illinois butts up to Indiana, or Indiana butts up to Illinois. I mean, it is so wrestling rich, and I think anybody who follows the sport understands that. And even if you curve around the lake and you go up the lake a little bit into southeast Wisconsin, that whole area, that tri-state area, has a ton of amazing wrestling. And the administration was honest and reflecting upon this and saying like, all right, let's give this a shot. Let's see what we can do with this. And they're really starting to put their best foot forward with not only investing in a full-time coach, but trying to invest in some more resources like, a bigger room. I think that's one of the things too, that they've, kind of said, hey, just do your best. You guys always say we don't need anything. We can do with whatever we have. But truth be told, higher ed's an arms race. So when you go into a room like Grandview, that's an unbelievably impressive room. And then you go into a room that, a school that doesn't have as many resources, and, there's a pretty big disparity. And you try to sell like, hey, we can do the same things here that you can do there. I have teenage kids. I know what they think, because they're always telling me, and they're like, Dad, apples and oranges. And so I have to listen to those things, and that's a good thing. We've got good support on campus with the administration who really wants to push this forward. And, I'm just fortunate to be here, to be completely honest with you. I really do. I feel like I don't know. I don't know how my name got pulled out of the hat, but I'm not complaining.
Maybe they go back and look up your message board history on the
Oh
Matt.com. We
God,
won't
I
we
hope
won't we
not.
won't throw you out there on what your handle is there, but he's been
You can. I
around.
don't
When
have
I
a
say
problem
he's
with
been
that.
around for a while, he's been around for a while. Like I said, I'm not going to out the name right now, but if you knew it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that guy.
Oh
So yeah,
yeah.
no, meaning because you've got some insights there that some people are like, oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. So I want to get back to Elmhurst for a second and
Yeah.
coaching with Coach Marionetti there,
Mhm.
who a guy that's got the D1 chops.
Yeah.
And he's arguably one of the biggest names in college coaching at that level in
Yep.
terms of his Division I credentials. And he seems like he loves it. And when
Yes.
you work for a guy that's got those type of legendary status in Illinois and wrestled at Illinois, and he's coaching at a Division III school.
Yeah.
One, what's it like working with him? And two, what's it like learning from him? And I guess three, what's it like to see a guy with that type of pedigree coaching at the Division III level?
Well, I think anybody that knows Steve knows that Steve is just an absolutely down to earth, wonderful guy, unbelievably approachable, super polite. That guy's mind is always working. He's a very quiet guy, but he's always assessing things. And, and it's just, and I'm not only talking in the room, I think just in life in general, he's an unbelievably brainy guy. Seeing him coach at the D3 level is really interesting because he understands he's not always going to pull in, he's not going to have a Joe Rao every year. Let's put it that way. He's doing his best. But I think the thing for him is he's really invested in trying to take the kids that do come in the room, that do commit to him and saying like, yes, coach, I believe in you. I know that you're going to take me from this point to this point. I'll give you an example. Anthony Munoz, who is from the far northeastern corner of Illinois. Anthony was a one-time state qualifier, non-place winner, and he bought in. And it was because of his relationship with Steve. And Steve is great about. Steve is very transparent, very honest, forward, and saying like, look, here are the expectations. If you want to do this, these are the steps you need to take. And Munoz was like, sign me up. I'm there. And it paid dividends. He another kid, Keone Durain, from St. Charles, Illinois, same thing. He said, one-time state qualifier, non-place winner, came in and just said, I'm invested. Give me the plan. And they had short-term goals, which led to the long-term goals. And those guys made it to the medal stand in Division III. And I think that's really it. Steve is an unbelievably passionate guy, and he will work with everybody and anybody. I constantly ask him questions in the room, like, Steve, what do you think about this? Like this crackdown position, am I on my elbow or am I going full out on my arm here? And he's like, well, let's work through this. And it's a really interesting thing to have a guy at that level, who's competed on the world level, and been essentially a top 10, top 12 guy on the earth. Say, yeah, here, take some of my time. Let me explain this to you, or let me give you my perspective. But he's also great about asking questions too. Like, hey, I noticed you showing this. Tell me about that. What do you think? Like, why are you doing this? Like, what do you think makes this a good position to be in? Or, why do you put your hands that way? And he's always learning. I mean, like I said earlier, his mind is going, and he's just trying to always improve on behalf of his student athletes. So it's really cool. I enjoyed it. Steve was one of those guys. He was a long line of guys that I had the fortune of coaching under. The first, I coached at Montini Catholic for a little bit under Mike Bukowski and John Javiakovsky, and I learned a ton from those guys. Israel Martinez was in the room at the same time too. I got to coach under Harry McGinnis at Triton College. He was an unbelievable mentor too. His whole thing at the same time was just high percentage. Like, let's focus on what works. Let's focus on the basic stuff. I tell kids all the time when I'm working with them, I'm like, what's Jordan Burroughs known for? A double leg. When did he learn it? Probably his first week of wrestling. So let's really home in on being as great at these high percentage things as we can. And the rest works itself out, really. So I've been unbelievably fortunate to just kind of have this connection with a lot of good guys. Mike Powell too at Oak Park. I coached his kids club for a while. He was a great mentor as well. So on and off the mat. So I've been really fortunate. And all these guys, bring different things to the table, have different approaches. But really at the end of the day, they're really all the same in terms of what their goals are, how they're working with their student athletes, and how people invest in them. And that's really the interesting thing, is to see how student athletes, their eyes light up. They're like, yes, I get it, the light bulb moment. And so there are a lot of light bulbs going on in Montini's room, Oak Park's room, Triton's room, Elmhurst room with all these coaches. So I just got lucky. I feel like I tripped into all these things, but here I am.
Timing is a funny thing. Happenstance and circumstance, I believe, is what Mark Chiarella said about his path in life. Now,
Sure.
Your path in coaching is one thing, but right now you are still basically waiting to coach your first dual meet. You got hired right before the school year started, and then of course COVID. What it is, we know there's teams around the country that have opted out of the season, or teams that decided not to compete. We know in Division I, the Ivy Leagues in Franklin and Marshall are out. We know we won't see Menlo at the NAIA Championships to tie that in. So the situation at Calumet where you've got to build a program, but you weren't sure what you had coming in. This year off might be somewhat of a blessing in disguise, so to speak.
Absolutely. There's no might about it. That's 100% true. I was hired August 17th. School began August 24th. So, when I came in, unfortunately, they were kind of, truth be told, is the administration was kind of looking at, what do we do with this program? Like, we've invested in it for the last, I think it was 11 years at that point. The return on investment wasn't what they were hoping for. Excuse me. So that was part of the decision. Like, do we go full-time? Do we go part-time? How much more do we invest in this? Are we looking at changing the room? So when I was hired on August 17th, I sat down with the AD at the time and said, let's be honest. I have nobody returning because they had not hired anybody since the last coach left right after the NAIA National Championships in March of that year. And there were only 2 kids who were walking in to the program, and they were walk-ons. I said, let's not declare this year. It doesn't make sense, because we're going to end up being the same program that we've kind of been for the last few years, and that's not helping us to build the program. And so he absolutely agreed. I think he was kind of a step ahead of me at that point, and he just wanted to hear it from my perspective. And a lot of it takes like dropping your ego and just saying like, all right, what are we trying to do here? Like, is this about me, or is this about the longevity of the team? And, not even the team, just the program as a whole. And so I said, hey, let's do this. I'm going to recruit. I'm going to be on, I'm driving all over the place like crazy, trying to get into rooms where I can. COVID makes that really difficult. But yeah, I mean, I've had, again, great conversations with, high school kids and community college kids, because I love community college kids. As I said, I coached at Triton College for a number of years, and I was a community college kid myself after I got out of the military. And, that matters to me. So I'm having great conversations with people all over the place, and just really trying to build up this program. And it's now starting to bear fruit, which I'm really excited about. For a little bit, I was kind of like, where are we at? And, truth be told, it was just reestablishing the name and saying like, hey, look, what you didn't know about us before, here's where we are. Or the people who knew about us, and maybe it wasn't what they had hoped it would be, and saying like, look, the administration's supporting this. This is a move in the right direction. Let's talk about your guys. Let's get these good kids in here. The kids who want to continue to compete, who want to, really expand their wrestling. And one of the things I had to do was, and this too, at kind of the lower levels, like say after Division I, Division II, a lot of times what they do is they hire just a head coach. And a lot of schools will try to rely on the name and say, oh, we're going to bring kids in. But if I got 30 guys in the room and we're broken up into 15 pairs, and I'm working with one pair, that's 14 pairs who are not getting attention. So I've had to focus on, developing a coaching staff. And that was one of the first things I did. So I've got some great coaches. I'm really excited about that, because they're much younger than I am and in much better shape. and they can get in there. I mean, I'll still roll with the guys, but truth be told, I've got to have the overarching plan and kind of point them in the right direction and say, hey, hands here, hands here, hands here. So, and if you want, I could tell you about the assistant coaches I have.
Yeah, I'm interested in that too. And I'm also interested in how you're building a roster in terms of, the schools in the NAIA. A lot of them are adding them because it's enrollment driven. There's schools that don't get, there's not a big rush to the door to get in there. It's not like there's a wait list for a lot of these places. And it's schools that have moved up. Some of them are very young. You talk about, Calumet being around since the 50s. Well, William and Mary, for example, where I grew up, was like 16 something is when it was founded, or 17 something. Right. So there's not a large alumni base to draw with. Okay, well, my granddad wrestled at Calumet College of St. Joseph. We're getting close to that in terms of, or where they competed. But we don't have that generation, that alumni base to say, or the high school coaches that the programs put out to send their kids to where they went to college. So in terms of the enrollment driven aspect of it, how important is it from the school administration to get a large roster? And then you talk about building the coaching staff, which NAIA and the subdivision 1 level, you can have a few more bodies in the room. I think the joke is that Wartburg, Augsburg, Grandview have a coach per kid, and if Grandview's roster is like 5,000, and they got a huge room to do it. But saying to build a staff of the local volunteer coach that comes in, how do you go about vetting that and saying this guy's right for our program versus just picking a guy that, okay, I need the help, this guy will do?
Right. So I'll start back at, the enrollment driven portion. It's hugely important. We're a very small, Catholic school in Northwest Indiana, Calumet College of St. Joseph. We have largely been working within this community, Hammond, Whiting, Gary, East Chicago, since 1951. And the idea is that, we have petroleum refineries literally half a mile from campus. We have steel manufacturing half a mile from campus. You can see it from campus. It's clearly there. Unilever is just the other side. So we've got a lot of blue collar families, a lot of, middle income, maybe low middle income families. And so that's been, what the charge of the school has been, is trying to educate the children of, these folks who are working in the mills, is what they call it. Constantly. And I'm sure people out east will understand that more than the people in the Midwest. But the mills, it's a big thing. My dad works at the mill. My uncle works at the mill. So we're trying to do that. The administration wants numbers. And I'm not naive to that. I understand that too. We have those conversations. And I don't think that's the only reason they want it there. They want, when I talk with the vice president on campus, when I talk with the new AD, ultimately they want to win. It's not only about numbers, it's about bringing in the right student athletes and trying to make sure that, we're bringing kids in who are going to be there to the end to earn their degrees. And if we've got to look at everything, like, is there an injury involved? Is there, are they going to take a little time off? They got the 10 semester rules, 8 semesters of competition and 10 semesters. Are we being good to the student? Because again, going back to what I said earlier, this is about graduation. This is about using wrestling to get to the end. So that's what I'm trying to do too. I want to build a room of, do I need 60 guys in the room? No, I don't need 60 guys in the room. 30 would suffice. We're really working hard on doing that. And the administration knows that too. The administration is on board. Of course, they want it because it helps drive up enrollment numbers. But they also want it to be what they've always expected it to be, which is, a winning program, which is putting out All-Americans, national champions. And I honestly believe I wouldn't have taken the gig if I didn't think we could do it. So, that's been important to me. At the same time, it's been important to them. And we have very honest and open conversation about those things on a regular basis. So they've given me the space to be able to do this, to be able to create this program. It's a tough sell for kids where you're telling them like, hey, listen, you're going to be the cornerstone of the new face of this program. And I've got a lot of kids who are really excited about that. Other kids are like, nah, I'm really interested in being in a program that's been established. And I get it. It's fine. I've dealt with that in the past, whether it was, again, at Triton or Elmhurst. So it's nothing new. But I'm competitive too. I want to win. I didn't take this just to say, put on my resume, head wrestling coach. I did this because I like winning. I like, even more than that, I like watching kids use that as a means to earning their degrees, improving their lives. And the kids in the region, for a lot of them, that's exactly the way they're going to do it. And I want to support that for them because, if it means that they don't have to work in the mill and they could go on to, working in, I don't know, biomedical research, do it. So that's what we're doing.
When we look at winning, the sub D1 level, you can actually come from nothing and be competitive very, very quickly. You can pull in from the junior colleges. The NAIA especially has been benefiting from, I guess, the lack of the Division I going the junior college route because, again, the stigma, not necessarily the facts of junior college wrestling, but the stigma about it that, they're academic risks. Whereas, look at George Mason coach Frank Beasley. He went to Lincoln when it was then a junior college because it was more affordable and it was a good school. I mean, there are really good academic junior colleges out there. So, if people are just skirting them, Grandview has totally benefited from the junior college level. Yeah. We're seeing other school. I mean, you look at the qualifiers. We'll get to the tournament preview here in a bit. There's probably 10, 15 junior college kids that have qualified for that level. So the ability to go from 0 to at least 5 in like 2 years and become competitive. The first step, I guess, is putting a full dual meet together and then getting guys to the tournament, then getting guys to place at the tournament, then getting guys to win the tournament. So with that development, the recruiting pitch I'm getting at is you can be good quickly. How do you sell them based on, you don't have a name in terms of credentials to sell them on you. So sell the school, sell obviously the building program, but again, sell the competition and the competitive aspect of NAI wrestling to an area and a world that loves almost Division I only.
Yeah, totally. Well, and the other end of it too is selling my coaching staff. I'm not naive enough to think that, when I look at it, I'm essentially a nobody in that respect. I am what somebody called a student of the game. Fine. I have no problem with that because I've invested a lot of time into being much better as a coach than I ever was as a student athlete. So, I feel very confident in what I bring to the table in that respect. Now, again, names matter, right? People care about those things. And, the first guy that approached me was Nick Fowler. He was our returning All-American from last year at heavyweight. He made the semifinals. He lost to Brandon Reed 3-2 in the semis in a close match. And, for those who don't know who Brandon Reed is, he's a 2-time NAIA National Champion from Lindsey Wilson at heavyweight. And he's legit, man. And our guy took him to the limit. And Nick said, hey, I'm a region guy. I grew up 15 minutes from here. I want to give back. I put a lot of time into, this program right here. So, I want to make sure that this is sustainable. So yeah, we absolutely took Nick and Nick's awesome. He's great with, the student athletes who come in the room and he's working with them. And then just on a lark, I got an email from this guy named Matt Gill, Gille. He went to Wisconsin Parkside. He's like, hey, I don't know if you need some help, but here's my credentials. I just happen to be a 3-time All-American at Parkside. And then I was coaching at Lindenwood for 5 years and then Parkside again for 2 years. And I was like, yeah, come on over. I mean, he knows how to recruit. He knows how to work with kids. He's been doing this stuff. I didn't have to make many phone calls to, really identify if that was true or not. It was true. So, and then we've got a couple other guys that we're looking at, local guys that we're trying to pull in, Illinois guys, Indiana guys. So we're still rounding out the staff, but I mean, these are young guys, Matt, Nick. We're going to be putting their hands on our guys, and constantly working directly with them. I'll do the same thing, but the kids can go on YouTube, for example, and say, oh, I saw Coach Matt's match against whatever. I saw Nick and Flo, have that close match or, in his All-American round and place fifth, things like that. So that's important. Those are great. And again, I never in a million years thought that when I came in, it was all going to be on me. My first charge was to really just find a coaching staff, that can be in here and can help me sell the program. Because otherwise, one guy's not going to do it all on his own. It's too hard to do. And I mean, you look at Grandview, for example, like you said, Grandview's got one coach per kid essentially. And it's not that Nick doesn't know what he's doing. Nick knows exactly what he's doing. But Nick is also smart enough to recognize that he can't do that by himself. He needs that extra help. He needs those studs in the room. You could go down, you look at Omi down at Life. He's doing the same thing. He's starting to build that program up. He took a page from what Nick Mitchell's doing. And I think that's great. And that's exactly what we want to do too. We want to have guys in the room, young guys, not 46-year-olds trying to 18-year-olds. Like, listen, my kids don't want me coming home beat up. Maybe they do. I don't know. They're teenagers, so who knows? But it's.
You talk about the only thing to discuss that. We've got Nick Mitchell learning from Jim Miller and only learning from Nick Mitchell, and then we see his large staff. That kind of you talk about Matt. And Matt came from Parkside with the late Jim Cook as the head. When you build a staff, you look for guys who trained under coaches who got it. And we lost Jim a couple years ago. He was a great historian, not just when Parkside was in NAIA school, but as they moved to Division II. So we lost a lot of knowledge with him. But his wrestlers and guy like Gilles, that's the name if you remember it, folks, from Gille. So you may hear one thing and think another. If you remember seeing that name in brackets, that's who he's talking about. So as we circle back to the NAIA, I want to get on that before we segue into our bracket discussion.
Sure.
This is a growing division. We've got 52 schools that'll be competing in this year's tournament. We have 10 schools still looking for their first All-American. I believe the lion's share of the almost 70 programs in the NAIA have been started since 2000. At one point, I think in 2002, there might have been 18 schools, 17, 18 schools at the NAIA. Why is the NAIA intriguing to you as a coach, and why is the NAIA a great option for high school wrestlers, junior college wrestlers, or wrestlers that are looking for something? Because I think 25% of the qualifiers this year started their careers at other colleges. So why are these schools good options, whether it be first, second, or even third choices sometimes?
Sure. Well, to go to right what you said, I think that it's important to, even if we're second, third, fourth choices. And I just had a conversation with a kid yesterday, and he was very upfront with me. He's like, yeah, you're kind of down the line. And that's okay. Sometimes things don't work out at another place. And sometimes, a lot of kids, and I coach these kids in high school too, where they have aspirations of, I'm going to be a D1 guy. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then it's just not the right fit for a lot of different reasons. And I think having and for a lot of kids too, it's having these smaller schools available to them, right? And having these smaller schools that may not necessarily, no offense to the Division III schools, but they're expensive, and having them right fit. And some kids are just tied to like, hey, I'm good enough that I can have an athletic scholarship. And so, there's a lot of different balance that goes on there. Like I said, for me, I love junior college kids. I also love guys that have maybe stepped away from the sport for a little bit and just kind of reassessed where they're at and said, I need a little space. I need to grow up a little bit, and I need to come back. And I think in the NAIA, you'll find guys that have that kind of background, and you'll find coaches who are very happy to say, yeah, I'll take a chance on that. Where other schools might be reluctant to do it. But what it does for the NAIA is that talent that maybe started at another place just moved over to the NAIA, or maybe stepped away from the sport for a little bit, came back, went a junior college route because maybe their grades weren't where they needed to be right out of the gates to, be able to make it through a 4-year school all the way. And so I think it's a good opportunity. Yes, the talent level's definitely there. And you and I have talked about this before. It's, what kind of equivalencies we're looking at. And it's like anything. You get the high-end stuff like Grandview, who's competitive with a lot of schools way outside of the NAIA, and then kind of down and to, some schools that are going to be not as competitive, but they're growing. And I think that's the idea, is we're all trying to give opportunities to student athletes who want them. If you want to keep going, why not? We're here. We're all here. You could go to MSU Northern, you could go to Menlo, it just goes on down the line, and we're all doing our best to support student athletes that want it, that really want the opportunity to earn their educations and do it while wrestling. So, and I'm 100% on board with that. I mean, I'm having conversations with full-on adults right now. I have a guy who came in the room. He's like, listen, I got 2 kids. I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? And truth be told, he led with education. So that's where I said, yeah, let's have the conversation. Because had he led with wrestling, I'd have been like, I don't know that this is, the direction you want to go with this. Like, since you're talking about, yeah, coach, look, I took a few years away. I want to finish my degree because it's important to my family. I'm like, bring it. Because he's got a lot to teach the younger guys that we're going to bring in. So I'm really excited about that. And I think other coaches are doing that too. When I look at other rosters and I do that, I'm kind of seeing where people are coming from. And I want to see who's around, who was at another school. And, somebody took some time off and decided, yeah, now I'm ready. Just matured a little bit. So I think the NAIA offers a lot of room for that. And so if, there's anybody who's watching this podcast who says, I've been kind of going back and forth on this, check out the NAIA. I mean, the level of competition is really good to begin with.
Ton of fun too. It's just one of those fun tournaments. I mean, I'm just stoked to I started covering it in 2012. Actually, Grandview's never lost when I've shown up. So I think Omi might want to be kidnapping me before I get on the flight tomorrow. Same with Jeff Bedard down there. A couple Georgia teams hammering.
I was going to say it, Reiner. Yeah.
I want to challenge you now on your student of the game part, because coming from outside of the NAI, now you got to jump in. So we are going to now look at the brackets, the bracket portion of the show, the promotional preview. We're going to go there. We're going to change the background to give you a little copier. We're going to go to the brackets. So here's what we've got. We are going to have some fun here. I'm going to have to pull up another screen here real quick just to get my data points up. So as I said, 52 schools in the field this year, 240 entries, 10 schools looking for their first All-Americans. We'll roll through them first, because that's one thing that I like to do, is mention when somebody gets their first one, although I remember Graham Carwath totally called me out last year for missing his guy. But I've since made up for him. He's been on the show recently. Arizona Christian, Bluefield, Central Baptist, Central Methodist, which I actually was wearing the Central Methodist socks yesterday. Corbin, which is out in Oregon. They had somebody in the blood round last year. Lincoln College, which was a junior college for a long, long time, now a 4-year school. Great junior college tradition. They're in the NAI now. Midway in Kentucky. Montreat down in North Carolina with their first qualifier. Texas Wesleyan, Thomas More, which is reclassified from Division III. Those are the schools looking for their first All-Americans. Now we get to the fun part. I'm just going to go here and find my seating. I'm going to sort my page. So talk amongst yourselves. Let's do that whole data sort. Google Docs have been kind of like my favorite thing as of recently. Let's sort by weight. Then we're going to sort by seed, NC, then sort by school. And this is where we're going to come out. Good thing this is why we're not doing this on screen, because this is what you call bad podcasting. So sort. So our top seed, we'll look at the bracket here on the screen. Justin Portillo from Grandview, 3-time All-American. He started his career at South Dakota State, Iowa kid. Lucas Nelson, Bruton Parker, the 2 seed. Randy McCray made a final a couple years ago for Life. He's the 3. The 4 also from Life, and that's something we didn't talk about the NAI. You can wrestle more than one guy at a weight class. You can enter 12 at the region and qualify all 12 to nationals. Grandview's got all 12 going. All 12 are seated in the top 4. But 125, we've got 2 returning All-Americans. We've also got a junior college All-American in Joel Avila down there for the University of Providence. So when you looked at 125, what are some things that jumped out about you about this weight?
Well, first off, I think in the rankings they had, excuse me if I butcher his name, but Nick Kuhns of Montana State Northern. They had a lot of people had him ranked at 125 for the season. So he's no longer there. He's up at 33. I got to tell you, I really like, one kid I really like is the 8 seed Carter Cox out of Cumberland. I think he's coming in as, I mean, it says 0-0 there, but
Yeah, not all the NAIA schools had put in their records. I got this
right,
probably either it was updated. Some of them are records. Some of them, like
sure,
Southern Oregon, though, has 0 record because they
right,
didn't even wrestle this year.
right,
So the records are a little deceiving here. But continue
yeah,
on with Mr. That's Cumberland University of Tennessee. That's Cumberland
yeah,
University. The
right,
Phoenix, not to be
sorry,
confused with the University of the Cumberlands, the Patriots in
right,
Kentucky. Just because
yeah,
that's what happens.
yeah, totally. I mean, for me, I'm a big fan of the underdog, right? Like, I like that Grandview has had this sustained success. But I'd like to see the kids who kind of come through, and it reminds me, um, who was Quentin Wright, some years ago from Penn State when he came back through. I think he'd finished 7th as a freshman, and then I believe he took a red shirt and he came back for his redshirt sophomore year, and he kind of just blitzed the field, and it was cool to watch, and I love seeing stuff like that. Um, you know, that's he's one that I'm going to keep my eye on. I'm interested in seeing how he does. Yeah, I love that life has really like ascended quickly. Omi's done great work down there, and he's got a couple of Illinois kids too. From actually he recruited out of Triton, and he's just really put together a great program, and I like to see that his guys 3 and 4 are going to be in the mix and really really challenging his alma mater and saying like, hey, we're here, like let's make this, let's get a little more parity in here, and let's try to spread the wealth a little bit. So I'm excited to see that. Arizona Christian too, Elias Gonzalez, I'm curious about him. Joe Lupton from Graceland, curious to see how that pans out too. But yeah, definitely Avila, as you mentioned, from Providence. Again, the JUCO angle, I love that stuff. So
here's an angle too. Look at 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Orem, Nathan Orem.
Yeah,
they're brothers. They could meet in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean in the quarters. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point of view on that one. So
we got that at 33 as well. We'll get to that here momentarily. Well, actually, let's just jump to 33 because
sure.
At the top, 133, Matt Gimson, the 1 seed.
Yes.
Twin brother Connor Gimson, the 3 seed.
Right.
They met last year. For those unaware, they met in the 7th, 8th place match last year. I think they did rock, paper, scissors, or coin toss to see who got 7th, who got 8th. And now, again, this is a stat that people ask. It's one of those things I get a lot. Is like, hey, is that the first time? I was like, well, it's hard to prove because I'd have to go back and see whenever there were ever brothers at the same weight that were twins. I mean, you get to, oh, what about identical twins or fraternal twins? It's like, I don't know, but
right.
they're twins. They met in the 7th and 8th place match last year. And again, part of that interesting angle that the NAIA can wrestle more than one wrestler away. But 33, let me jump to my notes here real quick because just you see that's got like track wrestling Andy Hamilton feature written all over it. I mean, you could have twin brothers meet in the finals.
Yeah.
You've got to navigate a Grandview guy in there, but right now the 3 of the All-Americans, you mentioned Nick Coons, returning national champion.
Yeah, totally.
At 125, he's up at 133, and then Esco Walker from Cumberland, he's a guy that's got some chops. Where's Mr. Walker? He was a 2-time place winner at the NJCAA, finished 6th in 2019 for North Idaho. And, that's one of those programs, even though they've had a coaching change recently. You're coming from North Idaho in the junior college ranks. You're going to be battle tested. It's like wrestling those guys at Northern. You've got a really tough winter to go through. They're hardened. So 133.
I recruit there. Definitely.
What do you love about 33 here?
I love that. Well, first off, going back to what you mentioned about the twins, again, Indiana kids, the Gibson brothers. I love that. Yes, I would love to have them. But Indiana Tech's got to get a little bit too. So I do like that. The Montreat kid, I like that he's number 9. I think that he is poised to kind of potentially shake some things up. And that's exciting because, again, that brings in.
That's a first-year program, by the way.
Yeah, that brings in some parity, and that's now you're talking about other programs coming in and kind of unsettling the status quo. And for me, I love that stuff. Esco Walker, there he is at Cumberland. He is potentially I mean, let's say he wins his first match, and then he meets Nick Coons in the quarters. Nick Coons has got a battle ahead of him, and I love that. I think that's really cool too. That you'd see a guy who moved up, national champ last year, potentially. Not saying he will be, but potentially he's going to have a tough match. I mean, it's not like Walker's just going to show up and say, "Well, I'll give you a break because you did pretty well last year." So I'm excited to see that stuff. I could on the bottom half, I really want to see if Gimson can push it all the way through to the finals. I mean, I'm interested in that.
Gimson Ibarra potential quarter, because Ibarra is. I watched some of his stuff early in the year when Concordia was like the first team doing anything. I mean, Aaron Sweezy was on the call with all these Kansas, Oklahoma isms that he likes to throw out there. So
he's a great guy.
And he's in Nebraska now. So,
right.
But Ibarra, as I'm sitting there looking through doing my stats, I was like, wait a minute. His name has always been on the tip of my tongue, and I just think that quarter has got some dynamicness.
Oh,
to
totally.
it.
Yeah.
And then
no question about it.
Grandview with Carson Taylor, the 2 seed again.
Yeah.
Grandview qualified all 12 are in the top 4. So while they may not have the name recognition of some of their hammers, I mean, Evan Hansen graduated; he was a 4-time champ. They've got another. They just reload. You can just plug guys in there.
Well, it's like any program across the country, right? Like the teams that sustain success are the ones where I talk to kids all the time, and the names on tongues constantly are, Coach, I'm looking at St. Cloud State. Of course you are. Hey, Coach, I'm looking at Wartburg. Of course you are. So, and I get it. I mean, they want to be in rooms where they know that they are going to get pushed. They know there's no question. There's a ton of great workout partners in there. And, we're building to that too. But I get it. Kids who are super competitive want to go those are Penn State, Iowa now. I talked to a kid who from Illinois, great kid. Never a place winner. But he's dead set. He's like, I'm going to Iowa. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be a starter. And I'm like, hey, I love that. Can you bring that over to Cal St. Joe? That'd be fantastic for us. So, but that's how it is. Winning begets winning. And, it's great to see. I sincerely appreciate what Nick has built out there, and Omi is doing too. And, down at Reinhardt and Southeastern. So, it's cool to see, because I think you've got some really tough programs that are coming up. And I think, I do believe that Grandview is starting to look in their rearview mirror a little bit and see who's chasing them, because that gap it's getting smaller and smaller. So, which is good for the sport. So,
as they've extended their dual meet streak to over 100 something. So,
right.
No.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of time before somebody's going to come in and just bring some, have developed some serious horses, brought in some really good kids, maybe from JUCO programs. And, they're just going to go head to head, and it's going to come down to the wire. And I think, people have to pay attention to that, and they have to see where that's all going to shake out. So, and I think it's going to happen. So, hopefully, Cal St. Joe.
141 pounds. Loaded weight here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 All-Americans returning from the NAIA. You've got 2 junior college All-Americans in the field. Yep. And then you have 2 finalists in the top quarter. You got Batterdine Boldma from Doane, the returning national champion, and then Austin Wallace-Lister from Warner Pacific, who is moving up from 33. He was a surprise finalist last year. Guy that started his career at Highline. And then he's the 9, so he's got to pull a seeding upset just to get to the returning champ. Down there, Kendon Lee's returning All-American. Nick Henneman from Lourdes, he's the 6 seed. He's an All-American. The other All-American, Trent Leone from Reinhardt, started his career University of the Cumberland. Of course, his brother from Kaukauna recently graduated as a 4-time All-American for the University of the Cumberlands and a national champion a year ago. So Jeff Bedard's got things rolling at Reinhardt. Again, that 5 match, you've got Blake Mulkey. Can't tell you much about him at Marion, but you're right there in Indiana. You've seen what Stephen Bradley has done at Marion and turning that program into a real. I mean, that's who you're really going to be battling for kids with.
Totally.
You've got schools in the NAIA. You go to Indianapolis, and you've got he's a guy that also has a junior college background.
Yeah, he totally does. Yeah, I've known Stephen since his Lincoln days. So, and he was actually one of the first guys I reached out to regarding this program. He's a great guy, and he's just always fun to hang out with. Super dry sense of humor, but everywhere he's gone, he's had success. And I'm not surprised to see Mulkey at number 4 and with a 17-1 record. So he gets tough kids and he develops tough kids. So yeah, Stephen does great things down at Marion, and but at the same time I'm looking to go toe to toe with him at some point. Recruiting battle, development battle, that sort of thing. So I like Mulkey. Now I will say this: you did mention the community college angle. Tyree Johnson at Life. He's a Triton College guy. He placed 3rd in the country 3 years ago for Triton. I think it was 3 seasons ago. He's 12-1. I think. Anybody that's ever seen Tyree wrestle knows that Ken and Lee, if they meet up in the semis, that is not going to be an easy match for Ken and Lee. So
now, are you just saying that because he's also another Downers Grove South guy?
Jason.
You didn't think I would know that, did you?
Did you talk to Sean Lovelace or something?
I did not. Actually, I spent my time researching the 240 qualifiers, digging through my almanac, which you can have access to, my sandbox, if you are a patron at mattalkonline.com/join the team. I'll weave that one in there. But yeah, I'll get to the state breakdowns here in a bit. But yeah, sure. Looking at the results, again, not having a chance to watch a lot of them, but again, sure. Omi's taken, Omi's a guy that, we're talking building his roster. I think 11 out of his 12 guys started other places, and he's brought them in. There's some big names coming too we'll get to. But as we talk at 141, I want to circle back to Batterdine Bolma at Doan.
Yeah.
Dana Vo's done a good job up there. I mean, he's done a good job wherever he's gone.
Yep.
But you got a guy that came from Mongolia, learning folk style, went the route with the Northwest Tech in Kansas Junior College, where a lot of those Mongolians have come through. Before that, it was at Colby when Muzaffar Abdurrahmanov and his brother Bexad came through with Steve Lampy back there. So looking at it from the junior college, let's get your expertise here. When you've got junior college kids wrestling athletes like a Boldma who isn't a folk styler, he's grew up wrestling a completely different style of wrestling. He's learning, and then you've got a kid that's you got a folk style kid that might have been an Illinois State placeman, and gets a guy that's like, I don't know, maybe on their ladder for like junior world teams and such.
Right.
I mean, the contrast of like a high level freestyle guy, which by the way, Norte down there from Hastings was a junior world teamer for South Africa, to tie that all together here at 41. What's it like coaching against that or seeing that it's like, what the heck is this guy doing in junior college? Oh wait, he's learning English.
You're right. Right. Yeah. And believe me, I've been trying to crack into that too, because I want some of those kids to play.
You getting that line of Ulaanbaatar.
Yes. Hey, believe me, I love Mongolians as much as anybody. I think they're great. They're fantastic wrestlers. And if we can offer them an opportunity here, why not? And it's kids all over the world. You've probably seen it on the boards. And again, we won't mention my screen name right now. But I've been talking about opening it up kind of on a world level anyway for quite a while, because I think it just makes sense. It makes wrestling better. Boldma makes wrestling better in our country. So, from a coaching perspective, I think really what we're looking at is we know that the defense on these kids is going to be unreal. They're gonna pick their spots. They're not going to be, doing the traditional American style of, pound the head, take 15 shots in the first period. They're going to wait it out, and they're going to look for that opening. And they're just setting you up. That opening's probably been there 4 times already. And by the 5th time that they're going, they just want to make 100% sure. So a lot of that is really focusing on our defense too. But when we're in there taking a shot, it's how are we reacting from that defense, right? It's not just pushing back up, pushing out, and restarting. It's what's our second line of offense at that point to try to get through head hands defense. On the mat, I'd love to just ride those kids out and work on turns. But then again, you're talking about freestylers. If you are good at not being turned at 90 degrees, it's really going to be tough to get that guy over to 45. So, so a lot of it is a ride out game, to be completely honest. Not my favorite part of the sport, but I think, you're looking at that sort of thing. And a lot of those kids don't want to, ride on top. That's not where their strong point is. They're looking for stuff on the feet because that's where they thrive. And so it's almost always close matches is what you're looking at it from that standpoint. So, but I'll take those kids,
Oh, won't we all? 149 pounds. This one, another deep weight class, 7 returning NAIA All-Americans.
Yeah.
You got 1 junior college All-American. Guy, Marty Margolis for Grandview's the 4 seed. Wrestled at Clackamas, started his career at Notre Dame College. But let's go right at the top line. Trent Johnson, the 1 seed from Lindsey Wilson. John McGowan, unseeded from Oklahoma City, returning All-Americans, and they're meeting at 49.
Right.
Johnson placed 4th at 41, where McGowan's coming down from 57. So, I mean, you see craziness. I talk about it at the Division III level all the time with a 1 seed. You never know. You look at just the stats alone. You're like, okay, you've got 2 All-Americans in round 1. That is not something I think any 1 seed wants. Not saying that this has got upset potential, but this is one that you look at and be like, just from looking at analyzing wrestling brackets, like, okay, 2 All-Americans first round, and it's like not like they had a chance to meet. One's coming up, one's coming down. So we're gonna. I mean, Denver Stonecheck's returning finalist. He's in that top half. John Diener at Morningside. He's a guy I've watched a couple times, and I think he's kind of poised to have that good. I mean, look at his record. He's obviously had a good year, but he was just on the outside looking in last year. And then down low, John Fox. Interesting thing about Fox, again, 2nd year in a row, he's York's only qualifier. Gilroy kid out of California, was their only qualifier last year, All-American, and he's a sophomore. So Jody McAllister returning All-American, Reinhardt, and then Anthony Maya at Cumberland. So Mid-South Conference. Basically, they're becoming like the Big Ten of the NAIA with just the numbers that they're putting out. And interesting note: Georgia qualified the most wrestlers from any high school state in the NAIA. Florida, I think, was 3rd. Georgia has 19 wrestlers in this tournament. So a lot of that has to do with Reinhardt and Life pulling in the local kids. But dude, look at these All-Americans in this bracket. Crazy.
Yeah, this one's crazy, and I think that I think John Pax is really poised to pull some big upsets. I'm just gonna say it. I think he's definitely got the foundation to do it. He's got the great coaching out there at York to make sure that they're putting him in a position to win. And he didn't make it 20-0 on the season accidentally. He's not walking in with 24 fits. He's earned those. So I think that bottom half is tough. Exactly what you were saying about Trent Johnson and John McGowan. Holy moly! Like,
who does that?
Yeah, if I'm either one of their coaches, I was, my hands are like, who did this? Like, whose idea was this? That it was a good idea. But I think it's cool. Again, it's from a competitive aspect. I think, and to use the term that you use, it's fun. The NAIA National Championships are fun. I get why people like D1. They love the competitive grind and all that sort of stuff. But if you want to see, like, go for it, and I don't want to call it crazy, but things like this, like this type of matchup in the first round, come check out the NAIA, because the wrestling is not only great, but you're going to see some awesome stuff in early rounds that you wouldn't see in the D1 championships. And these kids are worth following. The Trent Johnsons of the world, the John McGowans of the world, the Marty Margolises, all these kids are worth your attention because they're good. Denver Stonecheck, he's good, So John Fox, that's a kid you should know. So I'm a big fan of this bracket's going to be awesome. I was going to say brutal, but brutal for the guys who are wrestling in it, but just awesome at the same time. I think this is one of those things. Heck, Flo should be making a documentary about this one. So
there's plenty of athletes that are worth documentaries in these tournaments every year. Now, also, I mentioned that John Fox was York's only entry and is a returning All-American. This year, William Penn, Joe Eads, same thing. The number 12 seed, he'll be right there with Stonecheck. two
Yep.
returning All-Americans potentially in round 2. Eads is
Yep.
returning All-American and is the statesman. I pride myself on, I think if they have wrestling, I'm pretty sure I think I can get you their mascot or nickname.
Hey.
Division I used to know all of them in like the 9th grade. I was that kid toting around the almanac, but I've tried to make a point. If they have a wrestling program, I know their mascot. So the statesman, I'm not really sure how to say Oskaloosa or Oskaloosa, Iowa, where they're at, but that's the point.
I think it's Oskaloosa. When I was at Triton, we used to wrestle out there. So, yeah, that's a great program. I'm a big fan of the William Penn program too. So, follow Joseph Eads. I mean, he's another kid that's gonna, if you don't know him now, you're gonna know about him at the end of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely look into him. Again, these kids are worth following because they're good. So.
Moving to 157 pounds. 4 All-Americans here on the NAIA side. All-Americans from the junior college ranks. Thomas Stevenson from Hastings, Hawaii native. I actually was looking up to see his high school. Found him. The Google search brought me a match from him wrestling in Fargo against JD Rader, who works at Flow Sports. You might know JD.
Yeah.
He was an intern at USA Wrestling, wrestled at Nebraska Kearney Division II. So I had to send JD a note. I'm like, looking, where's this Stevenson kid from? Oh, he's Hawaii. Oh, the first result is him wrestling JD Rader. It was kind of funny there. Cooper McCullough of Cornbid, he was just so close last year. Another junior college All-American. But the All-Americans, Nolan Saxon, Reinhardt, your 1 seed, Derek Smallwood, Lindsey Wilson, the 2, Giovanni Bonilla, and Tanner Abbas, both of Grandview, the 3 and 4 on opposite sides. Now, one thing that jumps out at me is just as my inner Virginia, because I love this stuff. Round 1, Creed Lump of Bluefield. And Jacob McNutt of the University of the Cumberlands. If you're a Virginia person, this one's going to be fun because this is Grundy versus Christiansburg. So McNutt from Grundy, Lump, who started his career at George Mason, is a Christiansburg kid. So while they're not in the same divisions anymore, Grundy's now Class 1. Christiansburg, I'm pretty sure, is Class 3. Virginia went to 6 public school divisions. So I'm looking at that, I'm going, I'm definitely going to bring this one up at least some point. So we did it here. As far as the bracket falling out, I haven't analyzed this one as much. I know that Walter Wickman's a guy that they're looking at Thomas More to break through and becoming their first All-American. He's the number 5 seed. He had a pretty solid year last year, just missed it. But just nothing really that I can point to except the number 6. And
I was
Jack
just going
Bass.
to bring him up.
So Jack Bass, you might remember him. He was, involved in something that did involve a large state school in the state I reside in, and has had bounced around and looks like he's got, no pun intended, his life back on track. He is at Life, listed as, I believe he's listed actually as a redshirt freshman. I'm sure maybe a sophomore, depending on how the eligibility works, because the NAIA can be a little different in terms of total semesters. But Jack Bass was one of the, growing up, bouncing between Northern Virginia, where he wrestled for Robinson and my broadcast partner and my announcing partner in crime, Brian Hazard, and Allen, Texas, where I believe he beat Bo Nickel off a Cadet World team or something along, or he was teammates with Bo Nickel and then beat him at one point in a tournament. But Jack's a guy that has had all the talent in the world, and Omi fostering him and getting him an opportunity. This is, again, there's probably, because I know this story a little bit more than most, I'm paying attention to it. Of course, Jack is, I would love to see that his career and his future not be defined by his past, but this is a situation where the NAIA gives these kids a different opportunity. We've seen some athletes that have had some questionable past come in, and this is what's got him on the right track. So I'm keeping, from a personal situation and knowing he wrestled for one of my really good friends, I'm keeping an eye on Jack Bass. He's had all the talent in the world. He's a D1 level guy. He was at Minnesota. Now he's at Life. He's the number 6 seed, unbeaten. So, it's not smooth sailing the first time some of these D1 guys come into these lower divisions too. Yeah.
And actually, I'm happy you brought that up, because for me, at least in terms of this bracket, he's my, I guess what you would call my bracket buster, right? So he's Giovanni Bonilla, who's from Osceola, Florida. I've been at Grandview for a long time. I think Bonilla cannot overlook this kid. Jack Bass is the real deal. He's proven it. You don't just get to Minnesota accidentally. You don't just show up on their doorstep and say, "Hey, I'm here to wrestle." You earn that right. And and again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I think the coaches in the NAIA understand that if you make a mistake, that's not the end of the road. And many of us are really good at like trying to redirect kids and say, hey, listen, here's an opportunity ahead of you. I love doing those sorts of things and saying, hey, look, like, what's the next step? Because you have to pick up and move on. And I'm happy that Omi's given this kid a chance. I'd love it if it was me, but hey, Omi's got him, and Omi does great things with these kids, no question. So I'm really excited about seeing how he progresses through the tournament, because, like you said, that story is one that should be told. If he redeems himself and he comes out on top in this bracket, that's a story that everybody in wrestling should be talking about. Is the kid who was given the second chance and made the most of it. So I'm hopeful for him. We'll see how it pans out. I'm really excited about this bracket.
Yeah, five past D1 transfers in this bracket.
Right.
Couple from Central Michigan. You got some Big Ten guys. Now we're moving to 165. I need to turn my page because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 returning All-Americans, and then Cole Smith from Cumberland, who I am interested in because he is a transfer from my alma mater. That's school in Norfolk. Caldwell returning All-American, Chase Holman All-American, and on the top side, just 2 up there. Elias Vauifi, world teamer for American Samoa at Mo Val, returning All-American. Cole Tennety returning All-American from Reinhardt, and then Dalton Jensen from Grandview. One of many Dalton Jensens, it seems to be, in the sport of wrestling. And they all seem to be from that Iowa area. So this one pretty balanced. Cole Smith again is the 5 seed. He's had a really, really solid season. Again, paying attention to him, he was on the team at Old Dominion. Yep. So I'm really keeping an eye on there. But jumping out on the board, this is one I'm keeping an eye on Andrew Sims because he's Lincoln's first guy in as an NAIA school, and also those are the things that I'm aware of. So I can't really look at this from a competitive standpoint and say I've given it a ton of time. But those are the names to watch for those of you that are really, really curious on who to watch. But Grandview top and bottom 1 and 2 wouldn't be the first time Grandview's had teammates in the finals if seeds hold.
Yeah, and I like that too. Excuse me. Looking at Andrew Sims, and again, as we talked about earlier, they were an NJCAA program some years ago, transitioned to going from a 2-year school to a 4-year school, and then entered in the NAIA. They also happen to be in our conference, the American Midwest Conference. So I'm excited to see how Andrew does. But yeah, I'd say this is a pretty balanced one, as you mentioned. But I'm really interested in how Vauifi does too, because they're good stories. Let's tell those stories. Why not?
23rd at the World Championships in 2019, but was 5th last year at 165 pounds. So Caldwell was 3rd, but Jensen was 4th coming up from 157. Also, Tennedy and Holman are All-Americans that are seeded 11th and 12th. So, and then you've also a name I'm going to look at to maybe mess up my bracket there. The number 8 seed Ricky Padilla from Vanguard. Started his career at Air Force and then Fresno State and then left. He's for those of us that are in this age group, he's from San Dimas. And so Socrates loves San Dimas. That's a little visual for those of you watching.
I hear their high school football rules.
San Dimas high school football rules. I think there's a song is it No Effects that does that song, or it's one of those punk bands is like it might be No Effects. Yeah, could be maybe something along that lines. But again, I haven't given 165 pounds a whole lot of analysis other than there's bodies here, there's All-Americans here. This is just that's one. It's like, all right, just sit back and watch, let it unfold. I'm not going to fake like I know what I'm talking about here for the sake of talking about it. So
yeah. Well, and again, I think you have these returning kids and a lot of returning studs, if you will, who are in the bracket. But then again, every year, I mean, you can go from Division I all the way down through NCAA, and you see that they're just these kids who come out of nowhere, if you will, and kind of upset the order. And I think that's really cool here. Nothing's guaranteed. So I like. But again, I like the balance as I'm just kind of following NAIA. I like to see how this is going to shake out, but I'm hopeful for some good upsets, if you will. So
Yeah, 74, moving there, 4 All-Americans, top seed, returning champ Brennan Swafford from Graceland. And I tell you, that's a program that it's been a slow build, but it starts with one. They had Sean Beeson place last year. They had Swafford become, I believe, the second national champion in school history, first one since like the 70s. They can finally, talk about somebody else that's a famous alum. Brennan Swafford, when he graduates, will be a famous alum. Armin Fayazi had bounced around a couple of, I think he started at Santa Ana, Wyoming. Was Vanguard's first All-American since, again, the same kind of situation since they previously had a team. I believe the school wasn't even called Vanguard the last time they had a team. Malik Saleh from Campbellsville, All-American. He's a Virginia kid who I remember. And then Isaiah Llewellyn from Baker as the 5 seed. But looking at the seed, number 2, Casey Randalls. This kid was, D1 talent, came out of Wyoming, is now at Grandview. So, I'm looking for a bracket buster here, and I mean, obviously, he's the one that doesn't have the credentials because he's transferring in. But again, I wonder when the D1 guys come in, and you look at his record. He's got some L's. It's not just like I'm going to come to the NAIA and dominate. Let's go back to Mike Benefiel. When he came into Division III at Elmhurst, he took some losses to D3 guys as he was the top ranked recruit in the country. So wrestling Oklahoma State. So that's one thing about the NAIA. They don't care who you are. Some of these kids might not even know who you are.
No. Yeah. Well, and I think, it's a credit to Nick too. He's not only wrestling in NAIA schedule in non-COVID years. He's really putting it out there, and nobody's records are protected. It's not what, I don't think that's what anybody in the NAIA is trying to do. We're just trying to find the best competition to make our kids better. I think it is a real nod to, like you said, NAIA and how strong it really is, because, people don't understand levels, and they think that, because it doesn't say NCAA, that it's probably not worth a look. And I'm not saying that's everybody, but there's some, I've had those conversations within the last week, in fact. And I think when you look at this, you follow this and you go, man, there are these D1 kids who are coming in, and they're legitimately among the best kids in the country at this sport. And kids in the NAIA are beating them. To me, that would be the wake up. Now I'll say this again. You want your bracket buster? This is my guy.
I'm gonna see if I can guess. Is it gonna be Asher Eichert?
Oh, I don't know how you figured that one out, but yeah.
Triton kid started at Triton. I was gonna bring that up, but you're calling a bracket buster, so we're right here.
Well, he's tough, and I've known Asher since he was in high school. So he used to come up to our open mats when we were at Triton, and his older brother wrestled at Triton too. And he's tough. He really is, and I think he found a really solid home down at Life. And I love what Omi is doing with him, because, I've known Asher since he was a high school kid, and it's nice to see how he's growing. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of guys. That's the thing. He's like 55 feet tall and about, as narrow as the handle on a Q-tip, but that kid has leverage like nobody's business, and he's way stronger than people think. And look at him. He's coming in with a 22-2 record. He's good. He's good. He's really gonna upset some guys, and I don't mean to be redundant, but upset the order. And I think he's, if he gets past whoever comes out of the Mulhill Doyle battle there, I think that's going to be a tough match for that person too. And if he meets Randall's in the quarters, I think Randall's is going to be in for it. So, but yes, I do. I'm, a little partial to him.
So you're not coaching actively here, so you can be a little partial at this moment. Once the tournament rolls around next year, when you got guys there, we'll have to get another coach on to do the preview.
Okay.
Now moving to 184, St. Mary, a little interesting. They actually pretty much defaulted out of their qualifier for COVID stipulations. So Riley Jaramillo, the returning runner-up, had to get an at-large. One of 4 All-Americans from the NAIA returning. We got 4 All-Americans from the NJCAA. In the mix too. So Chase Vincent, the 8 seed, returning All-American. Tyler Hall coming over from Embry-Riddle. younger brother of the ageless wonder Tanner Hall, who we remember from Arizona State. So Tyler's at Lindsey Wilson now, was an All-American 2 years ago. And then Eric Vermillion from Indiana Tech. Tommy Pompey done a really good job there in Fort Wayne with that program. Then you've got your junior college guys. You got Blake Hodwin at Life. This is not his first time through here. Kareem Shakur Moval. Trajan Hurd, unseeded NJCAA national champion. He is unseeded. So he's sitting there in that. He's got the winner of Lee and Miles Starks from Life. Starks is another junior college transfer. And then Hayden Wempen, who I believe started his career at Northeastern out in Colorado. So a lot of balance here. And that Hurd, the Lee Starks winner against Hurd is the one that I'm looking early round going, I wonder what's going to happen here.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. And, Lindsey Wilson has had a very strong program for quite some time. So, it's not like Trajan Hurd walked into a program where he was the only guy. He's being coached incredibly well. He's coming in with a great resume. And I think I agree with you 100%. I think that Lee Stark match feeding into Hurd is, that's what I'm definitely gonna be watching that one specifically. So I'm excited. Again, JUCO kid, so my heart is there too. So I like to see those kids do well.
I left my heart in JUCO, with all apologies to Tony Bennett. That's not one that's going to chart anytime soon. Now, 197, Isaac Bartel, three-time All-American, has been a finalist the last 2 years, losing to Evan Hansen. Came back last year. He was going to redshirt. Wanted to stop Hansen from winning 4. And you got to love that Loudon Swain mentality of coming back. And Bartel, he's an Iowa kid. He's a hammer. To me, he embodies what Montana State Northern wrestlers are. Just, you're going to get some guy that's going to, and the chance you actually beat him, he's still going to beat you up. Unless maybe you're Hansen, but you're talking about a guy that when you go on a mat with a guy from Havre, Montana, when you spend your winters out there, they're battle tested, they're gritty. He's one of 4 All-Americans at the weight. He's the top seed. Trevor Lawson, Lindsey Wilson, the 2. Antonio Stewart moving up from 184, where he's a 3-time All-American. In that he was the first All-American at Reinhardt, looking to become the first 4-time All-American. And Diallo Matsamela from Life, he placed 2 years ago. The dangerous guy from the Mid-South Conference. Other junior college placers to look at: Levi Perry from Corbin, and Bradley Ancesberger. Now he's at Doane. He was an NCAA All-American at Dixie State. He was third last year. Now Dixie State is no, it's not in Mississippi. Dixie State is in St. George, Utah. They're actually transitioning from a Division II school to Division I. They have joined the WAC. They don't have a varsity wrestling program, as the NCAA would indicate. He's an Alaska kid too, as his brother's in the tournament. But Dixie State is actually in the process of changing their school name. So they've actually been in the news outside in the sports world. So shout out to the Extra Points community and that newsletter that's talking about Dixie State's name change, which is why it's fresh in the brain. But yeah, he was an NCAA place winner, finishing third at 97. And for those who are unfamiliar, there are some guys that hide out on the club side, and there's some varsity programs in the NCAA as well. But Dixie State has always been teetering on, do we go varsity? And be love to see them move their program to Division I, the start a wrestling program. But we're talking about the NAIA here, so. Those are the names. I don't know what Zane Lanham brings to the table with Life, other than he's unbeaten. He's the 4 seed. So again, one of those weights. We've got the usual suspects. I'm curious if Stewart can break through and finally make the finals and win one, because Jeff Bedard has really done a great job in the short time at Reinhardt. So I know for that program, it takes a big one. Like, you're trying to build the guys on the podium. Well, Stewart was his first guy on the podium, then multiple guys on the podium. Then the next thing is the guy at the top of the podium. So how do you see 197 shaking out? And can anybody contend with Bartel?
I want to say yes. I'll be honest with you. I think the kid's on a mission, and that's a go Blues Brothers on anybody. But, he
saved the half a pack of cigarettes.
You got it. He's
that's a stretch. That's a stretch. If you get it, gold star for you.
Yeah. He, bridesmaid, not the bride, if you will. And I think I love the fact that he went after Hansen last year. I love that. I think he's going to bring that same mentality and more. And it is you know, it's going to be tough for every single kid who has to line up across from him and shake his hand and then battle it out for however long they're going to be on the mat with him. I, I just feel, and it's not to say just because he's number one, he's had a taste of it and he wants the whole cake now. So I'm not saying nobody can do it. I'm not saying Stewart can't do it. I'm definitely not saying Trevor Lawson can't do it. I just have this feeling that Isaac Bartel is really tough to beat at this weight. Really tough to beat. So, but that said too, I'm also interested in see what Ottawa's Carson Savage can do when they meet up in the should they meet up, I should say, in the quarters, because he's got to get past Figueroa from Lindsey Wilson, who is coming from a solid program and is not going to make life easy on anybody. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited for this one too, but I just have this feeling about Bartel.
Heavyweight, this is 3 All-Americans. You'd mentioned Brandon Reed earlier. He is a 3-time All-American. He is a 2-time champion. He is going to he's looking for his 3rd title and 4th honor. And the thing is, when you say, he's good, this guy's a Fargo All-American coming out of high school. Right. And interesting enough, one of 10 wrestlers from Kentucky in the tournament. We talked about Georgia's 19, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama with some good numbers. So where they're growing wrestling in the South, we're finally starting to see that really. We're not with maybe this is the blueprint. Hey, Division I schools, look at the quality of kids that are now coming into the NAIA from those states. So it's one thing that's cool. Brandon Reed, the 1 seed. I will say this: he as good as he is. I don't necessarily think Ethan Bunce is the best guy to see off the jump. Right. As a guy he wasn't an All-American, but he's a kid that's going to give problems. The other 2 All-Americans, Patrick DiPiazza is the 4 seed from Cumberland University, and then Aaron Johnson from the University of the Cumberlands from a couple seasons back. But this is one, Greg Hagan, the 2 seed, and then the other Antisberger at Doane down there as well. Again, this is one that's just, stars are going to be made here. Brendan Shelton from Central Methodist is the first qualifier in that school's history. He's down there. So, again, let's throw the dice. Let's see what's going to happen. Because I really, outside, Reed's just the hands down favorite. But other than that, whoever places, 2 through 8, it's going to be somewhat of a surprise. I mean, I think that the 3 All-Americans clearly have the edge in terms of their experience, but I have no idea what's going to happen here. So there's going to be names that I'm unaware of that are going to hit that podium, that are going to be winning in the blood round, that are going to send, the the schools that you haven't heard a whole lot about onto the podium. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah,
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way to sum up heavyweight, because it's Brandon Reed's to lose, because last year we saw, and you talked about this earlier about bringing guys back that were away from the years. Now Tanner Farmer was actually in college sports, so it's not like he was completely out of it and just found his way back. But
an Illinois guy, by the way.
Illinois guy, yeah, he's with Illinois RTC right now. So that's who Brandon Reed beat in the finals last year. And that's a D1 caliber match too. But again, it's an NAIA championship match.
Yeah, if I can give a shout out back to my own program here, Cal St. Joe, he beat Nick Fowler 3-2 in the semis. So, I mean, there are some really, really tough kids that are not making winning national titles in the NAIA easy. These are really, really well battle-tested kids who are out there just battling it like everybody else. So
that's what we got. So NAIA Championships Friday and Saturday from Newman Arena in Park City, Kansas, just outside of Wichita, a little north, about 10 minutes. Pretty sure that's going to be streamed at trackwrestling.com, if I am not mistaken. That's where the brackets will be. I'll be there on the mic with Dort Mayab, my wrestling sister in crime, on the microphone. And Tom, appreciate the analysis with our brackets and some information about the program there you've got at Calumet College of St. Joseph in Northwest Indiana. And for those who are into the social things, the kids these days, where can they follow you guys on Twitter and Instagram and wherever you're at, and how they can keep tabs on what you're doing?
Yeah, we're at CCSJ Wrestling on Instagram. I can't say Insta because it drives my kids nuts.
The IG?
I haven't thrown that one out, Adam. I'll do that tonight when I got to drop my daughter off and see how her face is melted. So,
honey, how does this TikTok thing work?
Right. Well,
Dad, no.
yeah, I asked my 8-year-old to do it recently, and he was like,
No.
"Why would I do that?"
I'm just trying to keep my 8-year-old off chats and like Minecraft or Roblox or whatever it's called.
Roblox. Yeah.
Apparently,
So yeah,
apparently they're going public soon too. So keep an eye out on the IPO for Roblox if you've got kids.
I should be doing that. Yeah,
I
investing
don't
in
know.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say follow us on Instagram. We're going to be expanding our social media a little bit more. I'm really caught up in trying to get in touch with coaches and just having the conversation. So that's something I have to do. You can also follow us on Crimson Wave Athletics. That's on Twitter, but more directly, CCSJ Wrestling at Instagram. Follow us, just add us, and we're adding content as much as we can, and really promoting the program. And if anybody's looking for a small school experience, literally in the shadows of the city of Chicago, and you want to utilize that as part of your opportunity to earn a degree and earn your profession moving forward, we'd love to have you, come talk to us. That's what we're trying to build here. And then be one of the guys that Jason talks about next year, the bracket.
I love talking to the new coaches. I love figuring out what that echo is in my ear. I'll figure all that stuff in post show. But so for Tom Molony, thanks for joining. He is a patron. That's part of the way you could buy your way onto the show. No, he's contributed. That's one of the things. If it just happens that he's got a great story to tell, but if you got something you want me to talk about and you're a patron, you can come on too. So I owe some of you guys some co-hosting duties, and Cordy Fretwell, that might take a while. Terms of time, but for Tom Molony and Jason Bryant, check out the NAIA Championships, NAIA.org for your information about it. I've got a bunch of qualifier data on this Rockfin channel that is behind the subscription number, so I can tell you how many four-time All-Americans there's been. There's been 104 of them. You get the whole list. Actually found one that wasn't on anybody's list initially a couple days ago, so digging through that. Qualifier data, most states, what schools have the most All-Americans, what schools have the most national champions, all that type of stuff. I might even be doing some content as best I can with the working. So that's where I'm at on rockfin.com/MadTalkOnline. Of course, Patreon, you're going to get some of that content too. And of course, as always, Tom, I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time.